Hello everyone, and welcome back to Weston the Historian. This video is going to be a little different because I had a friend of mine who asked me if I could show my entire vinyl record collection, and I told her, yeah, but it's going to have to be an entire YouTube video. I can't make it like a Snapchat story or something because I have 133 records. So today I will be showing every single one of them. So, starting off, the one that is currently on my record player is Julie Is Her Name by Julie London. Got this for Christmas. It's a wonderful jazz record. And going forward. Alright, here we go. Killed by Death Rock, Volume 2. This is a collection of some death rock songs. Death rock is a genre which is basically a combination of hardcore and goth rock. It kind of emerged out of the 80s. It was like when American goth rock, or when British goth rock got into America, all of a sudden all these American artists were like, what if we just made like gothic hardcore, and death rock became the thing. So that's a compilation album. It's a bunch of different artists. I really like Skeletal Family. They're on there. The song She Cries Alone. Alright, moving on. Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance. That is probably one of my favorite pop punk albums. It's a lot, I feel like it's closer to hardcore than most of My Chemical Romance's discography, so I really like it. That kind of got me into heavier music, actually. Fun fact. But yeah, it's a good album. It's probably one of my favorites. And then I have Kraftwerk, Radioactivity. Kraftwerk, they were a German electronic band, had a big influence on early electronic and industrial music. But yeah, Bauhaus, The Sky's Gone Out. I love Bauhaus. I actually have almost their entire discography, as you will see. Almost, not quite, but almost their entire discography of studio albums, including Bela Lugosi's Dead and this other single, Lagartija Nick. But you'll see that. That is a great album. I love Bauhaus. They're one of my favorite bands. If I had to make a list of my top 10 favorite bands, Bauhaus would be on there somewhere. But yeah, then I have Killing Joke, their second self-titled album. Great album. Dave Grohl playing drums on this one. Good album. Then Rabies by Skinny Puppy. So this album is great. I love this album. It's a very controversial one. The reason it's controversial is because there's a lot of rock elements of it. It implements guitar a lot more because Al Jorgensen was producing. Al Jorgensen is a lead vocal, and he basically is Ministry. Ministry, very famous, one of the first industrial metal bands, and Al Jorgensen helps produce that album. So he implemented guitar a lot, and a lot of early Skinny Puppy fans really didn't like it because Skinny Puppy was a lot more like electronic, experimental, like dance almost music, and all of a sudden it sounded more like industrial metal. Like it sounded like something that Ministry would make, and a lot of people didn't like it. I personally think it's a great album. It's not my favorite by Skinny Puppy, but it is fantastic. It's a great album. And all right, moving on. Vespertine by Bjork. That album is probably one of my favorites of all time. I made a topster of my favorite albums, and Vespertine was on there because I love it. I think Hidden Place and Pagan Poetry specifically are beautiful songs, and I love them. I love Bjork. I love how unique her voice is. I love the uniqueness of her music, and I love that album. It's so pretty, especially like during winter time. It really fits like winter. It's such a good album. So good. Um, Disintegration by The Cure. Also, another one of my favorite albums and my favorite bands: The Cure. I love The Cure. I love Disintegration. Lullaby and Love Song, probably some of my favorite songs. But yeah, and then Dummy by Portishead. I also love that album, and I love Portishead. That's also on my top tier of my favorite albums. I just think it's so pretty. It almost sounds like jazz. It reminds me of jazz. It's definitely not, but it reminds me of jazz. It's very noir kind of sound. It's very beautiful. I love that album. I love Portishead. Um, but yeah, and then Everything I Know About Love by Leve. Leve is great artist. I love her. I actually saw her live, and that was my first concert ever. Um, and I loved it. I loved Leve. I love seeing her live. I love her voice, and I love what she's doing with like bringing jazz music back or something. I love it, and I know a lot of people in the jazz community have different ideas. They don't like her very much for whatever reason. I don't care. I think she's great, and I love her music. The Cure, Songs of a Lost World. This is The Cure's newest album, and it is fantastic. I love it, and it is probably my favorite new release. It came out this year, and it is my favorite thing to come out of 2024. Up there with, I really like The Garden's new EP, but I don't have that on vinyl, unfortunately. I love The Garden. Y'all should listen to The Garden, but that is a fantastic album by The Cure. Then Bewitched by Leve. I don't have the Goddess edition, unfortunately, but uh, that version is also fantastic and has fantastic songs, so it's okay. All right, and now moving on to the rest of my albums. I have Four Calendar Cafe by Cocteau Twins. Great album. My favorite song by the Cocteau Twins in general is Know Who You Are at Every Age, and it's on here. Then I have uh, Blondes Have More Fun by Rod Stewart. This has Do You Think I'm Sexy on it. Fun music. Then Mask by Bauhaus. This has one of my favorite songs by Bauhaus. That is Kick in the Eye. This is a really good album. I love Bauhaus. I can't get enough of Bauhaus. I love them. Then, let's see. Have. Ooh, this was a really cool find. Loved by the Cranes. The Cranes are severely underrated. They are so good. They're like the Cocteau Twins almost, but I would say that they're like a heavier version of the Cocteau Twins, but the vocals are even higher and more feminine, but they're fantastic. I love them. No one ever talks about them. I don't ever hear anyone talk about the Cranes. I don't know anyone who knows the Cranes, but they are great. They are fantastic, and I love them. Um, Moving on. Everybody else is doing it, so why can't we? By the Cranberries. I've always loved the Cranberries because I have a lot of nostalgia around them. My dad, he used to play the Cranberries in the car all the time when I was growing up, so I've always loved the Cranberries. And I don't know, awesome album, awesome music. I love the Cranberries. Then moving on, Pretty Hate Machine by Nine Inch Nails. Good album. Don't really have a lot to say about it. Nine Inch Nails is not my favorite, actually, especially in that genre of like industrial music. They're just not my favorite, but they are still good, I guess. All right. Um, Bauhaus once more. In the Flat Fields. Fantastic album. This has one of my favorite songs on it. Double Dare. Great album. Great songs and all the things. Who Can I Turn To? Stereo by Nurse with Wound. I don't really have a lot to say about it, but that's like early electronic industrial stuff. Had a big influence on the industrial scene, but I don't know. I don't hear people talk about them as much, but they were industrial. So yeah, then I have the Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy by Rob Zombie. Don't really have much to say about that. Rob Zombie's not really my favorite, but he's good. I have respect for him as an artist. I like his music. Fine. It's just it's not my favorite. Songs of Faith and Devotion by Depeche Mode. This is, and this might be taboo to say, that is my favorite Depeche Mode album. I think it's fantastic, and I love the song I Feel You and Walking in My Shoes. Fantastic, fantastic. And I love this album. It's funny because it sounds very 90s, it sounds grungy, but it also totally sounds Depeche Mode. Depeche Mode is usually associated with like 80s pop, new wave, and even like almost post punk and goth rock. But then, the 90s came around and grunge and punk rock got really big and they had to adapt. And they did. And it turned out really good. And, that album came out of it. So, yeah. Then Frank Sinatra sings For Only the Lonely. Fantastic. I love that. It's like part of this really like depressing few albums that Frank Sinatra pulled out, including Where Are You by Frank Sinatra and No One Cares by Frank Sinatra. So those are some other albums I own, but yeah. And then I think it's Homogenic by Bjork. Very good album. That is one of my favorite songs by her, which is um, wow, I'm forgetting the name of it. Bachelorette. That's it. I love that song, and I love Bjork, and I love that album. All right, now we have Ambido, Battle Path. I think that's what it's called. This album, I picked it up because I wasn't familiar with it, so I don't actually remember the full name. I think it's Ambido by Battle Path or Battle Path by Ambido. I don't know, but I picked it up because I thought it looked cool, and I listened to some of the songs on Spotify, and they were really good. It's like doom metal. It's very good. And then Doolittle by the Pixies. I also love the Pixels. The Pixels. The Pixies, for the same reason I love the Cranberries. A lot of nostalgia because of my father. But yeah, and then, alright, let's see. Bach, organ favorites. I don't have anything to say about that, but I like Bach. Then, alright, let's see. Feel Good Now by Swans. So, I love Swans. And my favorite album by them is Children of God, but I don't have that, and I've never been able to find it. But I do have this, which is basically just like a live version of that album. So that's very very cool to have that. But moving on, Post by Bjork, fantastic album. Fantastic album actually. It's also one of my favorites. It's probably that and Vespertine are my two favorite albums by Bjork. I just find them amazing. Then we have Rubinstein plays Beethoven sonatas. This includes Moonlight Sonata, which is my favorite piece by Bjork. Beethoven. Beethoven. And I know that's very basic, but I don't know. It's my favorite. Then we have. All right, this is a controversial one. Philosophum by Burzum. I don't. If you know about Burzum, I don't really think it's necessary for me to explain why that's a controversial album, but Burzum. So I don't support Burzum or the artist, but I think sounds awesome. It's a good album. It's a great album. Now, Treasure by the Cocteau Twins. That is also one of my favorite albums by the Cocteau Twins because it was the first one I ever actually listened to. The first song I ever listened to by the Cocteau Twins was, I believe, Persephone. I don't remember if it was either Persephone or Lorelei, but it was one of those two, and I just loved it. And I don't know, I love the Cocteau Twins. I discovered them probably a few years ago, and that was my introduction to them, so I just love them for that. But Sleep's Holy Mountain. So, great album. I don't know what else to say about it. It's like doom, stoner metal. Great album. And moving on, Paramore. I don't really have much to say about that. It's a good album. I like it. It's not my favorite, but it's good. History of Spanish music. This is uh, I found this at an antique store. It's like medieval Spanish music by Alfonso X. So that's a cool pickup. But moving on. Let's see. Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole, including Nature Boy. I love Nat King Cole. He's always been one of my favorites. He's one of my mom's favorites. So, you know, I love Nat King Cole. I love jazz music. So seeing that was cool. I got it. The Best of Dean Martin. Dean Martin is one of my favorite artists of all time. I remember when I first got Spotify, I think that was 2021. I remember Dean Martin, I think, was my number two artist or number three artist. I don't know. I love Dean Martin. I love his voice, and I sing myself, and I actually modeled my voice after Dean Martin because I just love his voice. I love his sound. There was a period of time where I would have arguments with people about how I thought Dean Martin was better than Frank Sinatra. Um, I don't know. I'll let other people debate about that. I also have this. Bill Justice plays 12 Smash instrumental hits. Also good. I mean, it's fine. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It was, one of those records that kind of just found and was like, it seems cool. Johannes Brahms, played by Herbert von Karajan, Symphony Number 1 in D minor. Okay, so, I love Brahms. He's probably one of my favorite classical composers, so I got that. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll buy it. Then, DAF. DAF was uh, another electronic band that had a big influence on early industrial music. They're German, so the name of this is Godens Speisug. Goat. Yeah, good. I love them. They're great. Uh, they're fun, but yeah. And then Nelson Riddle and his orchestra, more hit TV themes. Don't really have a whole lot to say about that, but it's a cool thing that I own, I guess. Kenny Rogers. Also, don't have anything to say about that. I got that in I was at a record store in Virginia, and they had like these mystery packs of records. So I bought them, and that came with it. So I was like, all right. And this was another thing that came with it. Um, so excited. The Printer Sisters. Very fun. Don't have a whole lot to say about that. Then A Date with the Everly Brothers also came with that. Still don't have a whole lot to say about it. Then the new Christy Mistrals, Rambling. Don't have anything to say about that. I mean, it's great, but I don't have anything to say about it. All right, moving on to things I have to say about Noctul, Wretched Abyss. This is Wretched Abyss by Noctul, I think. Fantastic. Very underrated. It's black metal. I love black metal. I've been listening to black metal for years. And I found that at a record store. I was like, oh, that looks cool. So I bought it and I listened to it. I was like, this is awesome. And this is severely underrated. Black metal, they're known for gatekeeping. So I don't believe in gatekeeping. I think sharing music is awesome. So Noctul, Wretched Abyss, go listen to it. Um, Ocean Rain by Echo and the Bunnymen. I love Echo and the Bunnymen. And I love the song Nocturnal Me. That song I fell in love with like right as I was getting into goth music. And I still love this album. It's a great album. And then The Cure. This is their debut. The Cure. It has Boys Don't Cry on it. Fun times. Then Maru? I don't know. Lovers from the Past. Dark wave music. This is their newest album, or his newest album, I believe. It's pretty good. Then The Glove. Blue Sunshine by The Glove. So this was like a side project of Robert Smith from The Cure and Steven Severin from Susie and the Banshees. good album. It's very good and it's fun. I like it. Next, Blue Album by Weezer. Everyone knows that album. I don't really care to say anything about it. But Weezer. I like nostalgia, all the things. Lagertigen Nick by Bauhaus. So that was an insane find. I found that at a record store, and I was like, "That's amazing," and I'm buying it. And that has my favorite song by Bauhaus. Watch That Granddad Go. It's a B-side, and I mean, you can't really find it on anything else other than this single, and unless there's like an extended version of another album out there where I can find it, Watch That Granddad Go. Fantastic song. But yeah, Earth, Sun, and Moon by Love and Rockets. Good album. It's basically Bauhaus, but minus Peter Murphy, because they had some sort of falling out. So they basically created their own band of literally the entirety of Bauhaus minus him, which is funny. But yeah. Then Kaleidoscope by Susie and the Banshees. I love Susie and the Banshees. Love, love, love. Don't have a whole lot to say about that. It's not my favorite album by them, but it's a good album, and I love Susie and the Banshees. Wish by Nine Inch Nails. Great, great album. I like Nine Inch Nails a lot, so that's a good album. I would recommend. I would absolutely recommend putting these records back in their place. Now, alright. So take a minute. Alright. And now, moving on. Alright. Alright, we've got Bites by Skinny Puppy. I love Skinny Puppy. They are also in my top 10 favorite bands, and I love this album. It's like early. This was their debut album, actually. And it has Assimilate and The Choke, which are two of my favorite songs by them, and just two of my favorite songs in general. Fantastic. I love Skinny Puppy. Then, Beer, Stews, and Queers by Revco. Another fantastic album. It's very funky, which is interesting for industrial music, because when you hear the word industrial and when you have an idea of what it sounds like, and when you hear like stuff like Ministry and Rob Zombie and Nine Inch Nails, the thought that industrial music can be funky is a little interesting. But Revco is very funky, and I love them for that. It's fun to dance to. It's fun to listen to. Stainless Steel Providers, good song. Under a Funeral Moon by Dark Throne was an interesting find. I was surprised to find that. And then Finisterre by Der Weg einer Freiheit, another black metal band, another black metal album. It's a good album. It's not my favorite, but it's great. It's a fantastic album. It's just not my favorite. Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Metallica I was really, really into for a while. I don't really care for them anymore, but I mean, I don't listen to them anymore. But that is my favorite album by Metallica, and I still every now and then will put something on by it. But I remember there was a year where I literally listened to that album all the time on repeat. Like, I loved it. Anyway, moving on. Revco again, Big Sexy Land. Another really fun album, very funky, extremely funky. My first experience with Revco was Attack Ships on Fire, which is on there. Great, 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 great song. Fun song. Very fun song. I also really like No Devotion on there. We Shall Cleanse the World. It's a great album. It's a great debut album. But yeah. All right, moving on. We have, let's see. Sorry, I know that the way I'm handling these is a little inappropriate, but don't really have a choice. Let's see. Rat Wars by Health. This is a fantastic album. It's contemporary. It's like, I would describe it as industrial, but it's fantastic. Bela Lugosi's Dead, Bauhaus. This was their debut single. Fantastic, fantastic. This might be the best song ever written, and I think every soul on the planet should listen to this. This also includes Bite My Hip, which is another one of my favorite songs by Bauhaus. I love it. It's crazy to me to think that that was like unreleased for so long because, you know, it was Bite My Hip, and then before they released it, they changed the lyrics and released Lagartijanik, which is the same song but with different lyrics. And I think Bite My Hip is better, but that's just me. Heaven in Las Vegas by Cocteau Twins. This is the album that everyone on TikTok seems to really like. I think it's a good album. It's not my favorite, but it's great. It's a really pretty album, and it's a very happy album. A lot of Cocteau Twins, at least a lot of what I like by them, is more somber. This is a very happy album. At least I interpret it that way. Then, The Queen is Dead by the Smiths. I used to be obsessed with the Smiths. I don't really like them that much anymore, but I mean, they're good. They're a good band. I That's probably my favorite album by them. It has I Know It's Over on there, which is a good, very depressing song. But yeah, so the Smiths. Moving on. Cleanse, Fold, and Manipulate by Skinny Puppy. So this album is probably not at all any of Skinny Puppy's best. It's a good album. It's not their best. It's good. It's like mid, I would say. It's like a little above mid. Like you can listen to it, enjoy it, and there's some great songs on there, like Addiction and First Aid. Great songs, but it's not their best. And but it holds a special place in my heart because it was my first purchase. There was like this big record event where all these, record places came in for this event in my area, and they were all selling records. And I went up to this one venue and I saw that they had Skinny Puppies. So I was like, "Hey, can I get this?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's like $40." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I have that much." And he was like, "You know what? You're a young guy who's appreciating 80s, 90s music. So you know what? I'll give you a discount." I was like, "Praise God." So I got it for like $10 off, and that album holds a special place in my heart for that reason. Now, moving on, Helbermensch by Einstürzende Neubauten. So that is a crazy sounding album. Fantastic! It's a great album. It's crazy, and I love Einstürzende Neubauten because they really push the boundaries in the way that not a lot of other bands have done, and I genuinely don't think. I don't know. There's I don't know, not a whole lot of bands that have really pushed boundaries to the extent that they have, and I think they're fantastic. And I like their little symbol, the logo of the little man. I thought about getting it tattooed because Henry Rollins from Black Flag, he had it tattooed on his shoulder. So maybe I'll do the same. The Crow soundtrack. So The Crow is one of my favorite movies, and it also is a great soundtrack. I really like After the Flesh by My Life with a Thrill Kill Cult. If you can't tell, I really like industrial music. So yeah, that was awesome hearing My Life with a Thrill Kill Cult in a movie which is pretty well known actually. But The Crow is a great movie. I love the movie. Tragic what happened to Brandon Lee, but great movie. And yeah, moving on. The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste by Ministry. This is a good album. Fantastic album. Very fun, very metal. It was like very metal because everything before they did industrial metal before, but that is like a metal album. Everything before is like industrial. And it's a good album. Now, The Land of Milk and Honey by Ministry. I don't think I can say the real name of the album on YouTube, so I'll call it The Land of Milk and Honey. But it's a good album. It's my favorite by Ministry, I think, probably. And it's definitely one of my favorite albums. Probably my number one or it's up there in my top 3 favorite albums. But anyway, Twitch by Ministry. This is another really fun album. I would describe it as funky, similar, well, not funky, but it's good in the same way that Revco is good because it's fun, you can dance to it, and experimental. It's a cool album. I really like Twitch. It was not their debut, but their second album, and it was also like it was uh, their first really industrial album because before they had With Sympathy, which was just a pop album. There's a whole story behind that that I can't explain in this video, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. 17 Seconds by The Cure. Great album. And Faith by The Cure. Then, I actually don't know if I can say the name of this album, but it's by The Cure, and it's probably one of their most famous. It has Cold, 100 Years, some other songs on it, but it's great. This trilogy, the Dark Trilogy, great group of albums. So moving on, Etaji by Molkadoma. I love Molkadoma, and I actually am going to be able to see them next year in concert, which is so fun. That'll be my third concert ever. And moving on, Burning from the Inside by Bauhaus. This was my real introduction to Bauhaus. The first song I ever listened to was She's in Parties, which is on that album. Good song. Weirdly enough, after listening to like all of Bauhaus's discography, I don't love that album. It's not my favorite, which is weird because it was also like my intro into the band, but it's not my favorite. All right, Debut by Bjork. Really good, really good, really good for a debut. Fantastic album. Grace by Jeff Buckley. I think everybody knows Jeff Buckley. If you know music, you know Jeff Buckley, and it's a good album. Very good album. And I love Jeff Buckley's voice. He has a great voice. Then Lush. I actually can't remember. Love Life. That's what it's called. I was like, I can't remember what it's called. That's it. Lush, or Love Life by Lush. I love Lush. They're a great band. Very underrated. I haven't listened to them in a while, but they're great. This is another album by Lush, actually. But yeah. Then moving on. Floodlands by the Sisters of Mercy. The Sisters of Mercy are probably one of my favorite goth bands, probably one of my favorite bands in general. And that album, I love it. The first bass riff I ever learned was Lucretia, My Reflection, which is on there. And that was, I think, my first song that I listened to by them and one of the first goth rock songs I ever listened to. And I just fell in love, and I love it. Over the summer, I actually had a birthday party and I performed Lucretia, My Reflection. So that's fun. And then Level Tears Apart by Joy Division. I genuinely think that's one of the best songs ever written. Then Belaya Polosa by Molkadoma. This is their newest album. Also great. It's probably one of the best things to come out of, I think it was this year that it came out. But great album. They're going to be performing it, and I'm very excited. Then Too Dark Park by Skinny Puppy. That is probably one of their best albums, if not their best. Very experimental, and it's hard to listen to if you're not used to experimental music or industrial music, but it's a good album. It's a great album. It took me a minute to warm up to it. I'll say that. First and Last and Always by Sisters of Mercy. I was so shocked to find that because I looked online for it, and the only records I could find were like $300. So I was like, all right, well, I'll never find it. And then I found it at my local record store, and I bought it immediately. I love that album. It is my favorite by Sisters of Mercy. Floodland was my introduction to the band, but First and Last and Always is my favorite. I listen to some songs from it like literally every day. Like, it's just so good. Then Script of the Bridge by the Chameleons. The Chameleons are fantastic. I saw them live, actually. That was my second concert ever. And gosh, they're so good. They're so good. So underrated, like criminally underrated band. And Warsaw. This is actually Joy Division before it was Joy Division. Fun fact. But yeah, don't have a lot to say about that, but it's good. And here's Strange Times by the Chameleons. So that was actually the album that they were performing for their live show, and it was awesome hearing it. And it's fantastic album. So many good songs. I love Swamp Thing. The little like almost bluegrassy guitar riff is so fun, and I love the song Caution. Really good song. Really good album. All right, now Juju by Susie and the Banshees. I almost said Sisters of Mercy, but that was another one of my intros to goth rock and post punk, and fantastic album. I really like the song Arabian Nights. I like Night Shift, Monitor. I love that album, and I love uh, Susie and the Banshees. Fantastic. That's probably one of my favorite albums by them. Yeah. All right. Now, Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. I genuinely think everyone and their mother should listen to that album. I think music generally would sound better if every musician was forced to listen to that album. I think all the crappy pop singer-songwriter stuff would sound so much better if everyone had Joy Division in their brain when they were thinking of writing lyrics and writing guitar riffs and everything else, because that's just a fantastic album. I have a band, and Joy Division and Unknown Pleasures specifically is like probably one of my biggest influences. I love that album. It is probably my favorite album of all time. The Best of Blondie. I love Blondie. Don't really have anything else to say. I really do love Blondie. Purple Rain by Prince. Fantastic album. Very fun. We love Prince. We love pop music. Anyway, Connie Francis sings German favorites. So I'm actually learning German, and I like Connie Francis. So I found this, and I was like, well, I'm buying that. So yeah, fun times. Fun times. All right, moving on. Oh, this is my only small little 45. It's the Little Dippers, Forever. That song was actually big on TikTok for a second, which is kind of weird, but yeah, found this and I was like, that's super cool, so I bought it. And yeah, moving on. This is going to be easier. George Shearing, Here and Now, very good. Don't have anything to say about it, really. Morton Gold, Blues and Night. Blues in the Night by Morton Gold. Very good as well. Music from Mr. Lucky. Don't have much to say about it. Deep Purple. This actually, I really like. Deep Purple by Nino Tempo and April Stevens. Deep Purple is one of my favorite songs, and I really like it because it's just super fun. I also just love the color purple, so I'm very biased. But yeah, moving on. We have Come Fly With Me by Frank Sinatra. I love Frank Sinatra. Everyone, I mean, I've like on Spotify Wrapped, I've pretty consistently been like number one, like Frank Sinatra listener, like top 0.5% of Frank Sinatra listeners on Spotify. Like, I love Frank Sinatra. If you couldn't tell by the other Frank Sinatra records I owned. Anyway, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by Johnny Mathis. Not much to say about it. I actually got that when I first started collecting records. And I really like Johnny Mathis. He has a good voice, and I like a lot of his songs. Here's another Johnny Mathis record. It's his greatest hits. But fun times, fun times. Chet Baker sings and plays with Bud Shank, Russ Freeman, and strings. I love Chet Baker. He is probably one of my favorite jazz artists. Ella and Louie. This is one of my favorite jazz albums of all time. I love Ella Fitzgerald and I love Louis Armstrong, and I love them together. One of my favorite jazz songs, which is on here, is Stars Fell on Alabama. Great song, fantastic song, very pretty song. It Could Happen to You by Chet Baker. Probably. It's hard for me to say, but it's either this or Chet Baker Sings. One of them is my favorite album by Chet Baker, and I can't decide which one is which. Anyway, Around Midnight by Julia London. Also fantastic. Fantastic, fantastic. Moonlight Sinatra by Frank Sinatra. One of my favorite albums by Frank Sinatra because it's purple. Anyway, moving on. So you remember I got this mystery record thing? It also came with 2 records that didn't have a sleeve, which is not good. I don't know what to do about the health of these, but they're very cheap and they're already scratched up. So I was like, I'm just not gonna try to figure anything out. This is Andre Segovia guitar, and this is uh, Band of the Grenadier Guards. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about that. Anyway, the best of Judy Collins. I love Judy Collins. I love her voice. Her version of Amazing Grace is like the best thing to ever bless this world. But yeah, then David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, great album. I think everyone should listen to it. I think I love David Bowie, but I think everyone should listen to that album at least once. Master of Reality by Black Sabbath, fantastic, fantastic album. I love Black Sabbath now. Arthur Rubinstein does Dvorak Piano Quintet. I love Dvorak. He's probably one of my favorite composers. He was Romantic era. And I love Arthur Rubinstein because he did a lot of cool, playing classical pieces. But yeah, fun times. Bruckner, Symphony Number 3. And don't really have anything to say about that. But yeah. And Beethoven Symphony Number 5. And Schubert Symphony Number 8. Fun times. Jean Sibelius, I think I pronounced that right. Violin Concerto in D minor, Opus 47, and on Saga, Opus 9. How fun. Um, we have Beethoven Symphonies Number 1 and 2, performed by Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. Martin? I don't know, something like that. Anyway, Mozart Symphony Number 40 in G minor. It's probably one of Mozart's most famous pieces. And Schubert Symphony Number 8 in B minor. How fun. And this art is from one of my favorite artists, Peter Paul Rubens. But yeah, then Ormandy conducts Dvorak Symphony Number 7. Once again, love, love, love Dvorak. Arthur Rubinstein does Chopin. Chopin is probably my favorite classical composer. It's hard for me to say as I've gone deeper into classical music if Chopin is still my favorite, but he's definitely, definitely, definitely up there. Yeah, all right. The last 2. Tchaikovsky, Nutcracker Suite. And my favorite Chopin, played by Van Silleboom. I think I pronounced it right. Van Cliburn. That's really embarrassing. I really like Van Cliburn. He did a fantastic record where he performed Franz Liszt, his pieces. I really like Un Sospiro. But yeah, so that's all. That's everything. Wow. Thank you. 43 minutes. That's insane. All right. Well, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for watching.